Hi guys, welcome to week 4. So I want to start right off the bat by highlighting some things that you'll need to know. So so you're going to be submitting your first draft and, well, only draft of A1 this Wednesday. And I'm sorry if you hear some crying in the back. That is just my puppy. So it is due this Wednesday before midnight, and it needs to be submitted by that deadline. It's really important that you do so because you're going to be holding peer review or workshop on Thursday. So you will need to contact a classmate to partner up with them before then. And then feedback for your partner is going to be due on Thursday by 11:59 p.m. So at some point on Thursday, you'll want to take a look at your partner's draft. You can also do this before Thursday, but if your partner uploaded things early. But anyways, by Thursday at 11:59, you'll upload your feedback, and this will be done in a Word document. And then you'll have the weekend to make revisions based on the feedback that you receive, and your final draft of A1 is going to be due on Canvas a Sunday by 11:59 p.m. So let's talk about some workshop expectations, since this is one of those things that's coming up pretty soon now. So if you don't submit your draft by the deadline, your partner won't be expected to provide feedback for you, and you also won't receive any points if you provide feedback for your partner. So essentially, you'll receive a 0 for workshop if you submit late. So it's really important that you do submit by the deadline because workshop, it counts for a lot of points. And then other requirements are that you must upload a Word document. So make sure that you have the capability to do so by the time that this is all due. You also must upload your feedback by the deadline, and a failure to upload feedback will also result in a 0 for workshop. So let's talk about the readings that you all did for homework over the weekend now. I think these were really important readings, and they're really going to come in handy when you do start to do workshop, because it gives great tips for, being a good reader. And so let's go over some of those main takeaways. So first of all, shitty first drafts are welcome and they're okay. So all of us have them, and instead of thinking of them as failures, we should really think of them as opportunities to get ideas down, so that we can get the feedback, revise them, and fix them up and make them look polished. And another thing to note on the flip side of that is that your draft might not be shitty. It might be a great first draft, and that's okay too. It doesn't have to be shitty. It doesn't have to be anything. So these are some best practices for workshopping, and you'll want to implement these as you're looking at your peers' feedback, as you're looking at your peers' work. You want to make sure that you implement these tips. So one of them is that you should see yourself as a responder and not an evaluator. You're not grading this paper, you're giving them feedback. So you want to point to problem areas, as Straub says, and areas for improvement, but do so in a constructive way and see what you can do to push that person even further as a writer. Other things you want to consider is asking your partner what their goals are. So you just want to make sure that your partner knows how you're understanding their work. And that is useful feedback in and of itself, because if you're not understanding it the way your partner intended, then they know that they're going to need to make some changes. And then how to get started. So you want to review the assignment and the criteria. So I highly recommend checking out that rubric for A1 and checking out the overall assignment description for the requirements. And then think about how well this paper meets or doesn't meet those standards. So one of the things you'll want to consider is what are the rhetorical features and concepts that we've been discussing throughout class. So things like, the thesis and the key points and the supporting evidence, are those all in there? Can you tell which is which? And then maybe also think about what stage of the drafting process is this in? Is it super polished? Does it still need some work? So those are all things to consider. You also want to consider, how you're commenting. So your comments should focus on commenting in just a couple of areas. You don't want to overwhelm your partner with all this feedback. So try to focus on the most crucial places that need help. So if there's something you're not understanding, or you think there's something big that's missing, I wouldn't focus too much on grammatical errors. You can point these out to your partner, but they shouldn't be your focus. Don't read this paper looking for, a misplaced comma. We don't care about that here. We care about the big idea. And you want to sound like you normally would when you're speaking to a friend or an acquaintance. So you don't want to sound like a teacher or a judge. You just want to sound like, hey, I'm reading this for my friend and I'm trying to help them out. And instead of making brief statements, try to explain what you mean when you comment on things. So don't just say, this is great. Tell them why this is great and why it's accomplishing, or what it's accomplishing. So here are some more tips, and you guys can view these on the PowerPoint slide. That's not a lecture, but they just give you more general guidelines and tips for giving feedback to your peers. So you want to play back how you understand their writing. You want to, be kind in your criticism and offer advice, but don't tell anybody what to do. Don't be prescriptive. And then ask questions about what the intentions were behind this, and explain when you have an initial comment like, that's great, or this confuses me, explain why. And then you also want to offer praise. So don't just let it all be negative feedback. Don't just let it all be positive feedback. You want a nice, healthy balance of both. So because you're all going to be looking at these summaries pretty soon, this is an overall outline of what should be there, right? So we want to have the publication information so that we have context for our reader. We also want to include our thesis and key points that are supporting that thesis, along with other rhetorical features like who the audience is, what feature of the text you analyze that helps you determine that audience. Other things that I've noticed with students in the past is that sometimes key points are either too specific so that they're really a piece of evidence, or they'll be too broad so that they sound like a thesis. There should be a nice healthy balance, and the summary should be 100% objective in the summary portion, and then when you later go on to respond, you can explain how you felt about that. But the initial portion needs to be, without opinions or reactions. Another really important element is to make sure that when you are paraphrasing things that the author has said, that you're doing so correctly and that you're not plagiarizing, whether it is unintentional or intentional. So you want to make sure that you are giving that attribution to the original author by using author tags. So that's one of the big things you want to look out for with this. So this slide is actually left over from one of my other classes, and you won't need to work with a partner on this. You can do it on your own. But just make sure that you do look for things that need improvement, like the big picture stuff. And then on the same note, look for things that are, positive, that are really working. And think about where this fits in your rubric, what parts are addressing that rubric. And then for homework, you will submit a discussion post on the readings that you all did, and that is going to be due Tuesday by 11:59 p.m. So September 15th by 11:59. Then you'll also submit your feedback for that student example that we just talked about. This is due on Canvas as well. All of this will be found on week 4 materials. So That's due Tuesday as well. And then you will need to submit your draft by midnight on Wednesday because you will be workshopping the very next morning. So make sure that you submit it on time, and you'll see instructions for how you can submit this and how you can give feedback to your partners on Canvas as well. And please, please, please email me if you have any questions at all. Your feedback for your partner is going to be due on Thursday by 11:59 p.m. and then you'll have the whole weekend to make revisions, and your final draft of A1 is due Sunday, September 20th by 11:59. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd be happy to help, okay?